I now declare the April 28, 2022 BZA meeting to order and open for business. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Roll call, please.
Darren Price.
Here.
Leota King.
Here.
Oh wait, I'm going the wrong way. Carrie Simpkins. She's absent. Bill Crawford.
Here.
Jeff Fisher.
Here.
Price, Leota King. Bill McDaniel.
Present.
Jeff Wessling.
Present.
And Beverly Hood.
All right, next on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the March 24th APC meeting, or BZA meeting. Okay. I know, didn't get a chance to read a lot of it, but scanned it anyhow. So I'll take a motion if you, unless you want to read some more of it.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
All right, motion made and properly seconded to accept the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay. And next on the agenda is a public hearing, petition number 15474, with petitioner Corey Boswell. It's a variance from the development standards of the Fayette County Area Zoning Code. Variance requesting relief from the minimum lot size in A1 district, agricultural district of 3 acres to permit a split of 1 acre from an 80-acre parcel. You want to come up and kind of, I think I pretty well covered what you want. But
Yep.
Okay, but, if you could properly pronounce your name for everybody's benefit, because I know I asked you.
Yep, Boozold, Corey Boozold.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just wanting to, me, my brother, and my dad own this field together, and we're in agreement that I own the house, and we're just wanting to section it off. And 1 acre lot size fits, you know, the track pretty nice for the house, and it's got 1 building on it, and would leave adequate room for, you know, a septic field. And personally, I feel like it fits all the needs, you know, for everything, but just applying for it, so.
anybody have any questions for him? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to close the public meeting on petition number 15474. All righty, take a motion.
I make a motion to approve the 1 acre for the house
I'll
and to
second it.
divide that land up.
All right, I got a motion made and properly seconded to grant Mr. Bozal
Boozold.
his variance for the 1 acre. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. You just go in and talk to him. He can give you all the information that you
And
need.
what I'll do is also is you prepare a letter, and I'll get a letter from you telling you what the results of the BZA action is, you know, for your records.
Okay.
And but then you can
Get it surveyed.
survey it off and then record it and record the split.
Okay. Good deal, thank you.
Yep.
Feel free to go if you want.
Okay. Good deal, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, we'll see you.
All righty. Next on the agenda is the director's report.
Okay. You probably noticed I decided to add something that I mentioned last month. Right now, I just showed the first 3 months of the how much additional fees were generated under the new. It's an approximation of the additional fees generated from the new fee schedule. And so what I will start doing from this point on is I'll just do the current month and then just the running total. As you can see, as it's picked up, is we've certainly generated quite a bit more, and a big part of that is coming from the what were previously the $50 permits. So that's really where the difference is. And interestingly is that now one thing that is going to be less than in the past would be on some of the, say a larger dwelling, single family dwelling. So the fees are actually reduced from that since we're basing it on the number of inspections rather than just strictly on the square footage that we had previously. But all the things such as the accessory buildings, the additions, the garages, things along those lines, those are actually then a little bit more also on the, for the electric inspections. So, for the electric upgrades. So we are generating more income. So, so it'll be an interesting one to see what happens over the course of the year as far as how much additional.
It's something that needed to be done a long time ago.
Yeah, so, and I'm glad I've had support with the members of the Area Plan Commission, and going back with also with Gary Naylor, when Gary was on the commissioners. Gary is very supportive of doing this also as a commissioner, and the current commissioners were also very supportive.
Okay. If everybody's had a chance to read it, I'll take a motion.
I'll move to approve the director's report.
Second.
Motion made and properly seconded to accept the director's report. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Anybody have any comments that they'd like to make? That you've heard from people outside or anything that you want to talk about? No? Okay, then I'll take a motion for an adjournment.
I'll make
So
that
moved.
motion.
All right, you got that? Motion made and properly seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Let's go home.
Oh, yes,
call this regular meeting of the Area Planning Commission to order. We'll begin this evening with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll begin with roll call.
Darren Price,
So otherwise,
Leota King,
Present.
Brian Durham is absent,
I'm not used to it yet.
Dale Munson is absent, Gary Naylor,
Present.
Robert Stewart,
Almost need a step
Absent.
ladder to get in it.
Brian Robb,
Here.
Bill Mackey, absent, Darrell Drew, Bill McDaniel,
Present.
Jeff Wessling,
Present.
and Beverly Rude.
We do have a quorum, so we can have an official meeting. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes for the,
I don't have any.
oh, you don't have these?
No.
That's listed, all right. Seeing that we don't have any minutes to approve, we'll move on to consideration for changing the APC time.
Yeah. And the suggestion was, Mr. Stewart, I don't, at least discuss, is I don't know, because I have no idea how the other members might feel about it, but the idea was to change an earlier time, because the county council is what, 6 o'clock? Mm-hmm. Okay, so he was interested in changing it to an earlier time, either 6 or 6:30. And I think if it was to be changed, 6 o'clock would probably make more sense, just in case it runs a little longer, which is, it's liable to it, the things that we're trying to accomplish with the plan commission, probably 6 o'clock. But I think with only just barely making the quorum, it would probably be best to not actually vote on it, but discuss it among yourselves, your feelings about it. So,
Any ideas, thoughts?
6 o'clock's fine with me, except what you just mentioned, sometimes you're gonna run over, so I don't know what that
yeah.
does to the,
BZA.
yeah.
I mean, I thought the purpose of swapping the two was
Right.
so that we wouldn't interfere with each other,
Yeah.
more or less.
And yeah, so then the idea of giving it an actual hour would probably make more sense. Because there's times it might run a little bit longer, but as I mentioned to Bill Crawford, I told him, well, you can sit in the front row and tap your wristwatch.
I think it'd be great. I mean, just getting home a little early from the meetings and, you know, when you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you can get a little more sleep is good.
Amen. Could we go earlier?
That's my question, it's 5:30 out of whack, or
Well, that's
would it?
I guess it's an hour and a half.
an hour and a half.
We can get it done by then.
Be a little challenging. Yeah,
I'm sorry,
5:30 would be a little challenging for me.
would it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's consider 6 and we'll look at it next month if we have more people. And I don't disagree with the thought of starting earlier. Some of the stuff we're working on, I don't want to be rushed if
Right.
BZA's got a public hearing.
Jeff, does that mess you up with your feeling?
Was my only concern. And granted, an hour and a half is plenty long enough to be sitting in here discussing
An
things.
hour,
I
you're
mean,
gonna stay on task and get it done.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And I think one thing also is, such as when we get to have the public hearing for the solar energy, is we're gonna have a special meeting anyway for
Right,
that.
yeah.
Because some of the things we want to accomplish as far as public hearings is at least something like this, that we'll definitely want to have it at the ones that could really be a time sink, would be, special meeting.
Right, yeah. I would agree with you. So let's take that under advisement and once we get a bigger quorum, then hopefully next month we'll have more
Okay.
people here.
So that wouldn't cause any difficulty for any of you five then?
I don't I mean, I could even go to 5:30.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
it's-
but
Darren,
Darren is
Yeah.
tough for him, so.
be okay with you, Leota?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay, all right.
I had it all mixed up with some other meetings that I go to anyway. I thought it started at 6, so.
Leota and I would have been here at 6 if I hadn't called Jeff and asked him about it.
You're about 2 months ahead.
Because she called me and said something about being at 6, and I thought they started at 7, but man, it's been a whole month since I've been there, so maybe it does start at 6.
I got mixed up with Central Committee.
All right, let's,
Okay, could I ask one question then, because it's kind of related to that? So, I don't know if you recall when I sent an email out, was it a couple of months ago, about my, the kind of the oops on the timing for my trip in September. And so all the plans, everything's been paid for, so if Brian doesn't think there's a problem if I'm not here for that meeting in September. So it'd be either that or if we move the meeting.
Jeff, you can be there, can't you?
Okay.
Well, Jeff will keep us out of trouble.
And then I'll just need some help with someone then who will gather up my box and then set things up for me at the meeting.
And maybe maybe we can try to plan around that so that we have a specific item to discuss that month,
Yeah,
and just for discussion
yeah.
purposes.
And because in the 20 years I've been doing this is the only second time I've asked for that.
Well, we
It's-
won't ding you too hard.
Oh, thank you. I really feel good to hear that.
We already made a motion for you to be the area plan commission this year, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
Now, next year is a different
That's a different
story,
story,
right,
yeah.
Leo? Okay,
All up for consideration.
all right, we'll put that back on the agenda for next month on the time change, and we'll discuss it some more, hopefully come up with a definitive time. And then moving on to the zoning, I missed it last month, but you all discussed the solar energy ordinance in quite a bit of detail, I understand, and
And I don't know if you watched watched it on YouTube.
no, I haven't yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Is there anything that you can add to what was discussed last month?
I don't think so. I feel like it was pretty thorough.
Yeah, because the one thing I haven't really had a chance to look into with this over this last month was some of the things related to the questions and concerns regarding it's the bonds and the financial assurance and the decommissioning. So I think that's probably the most critical thing right there. Because one thing I have is my focus for this next month will be the things I didn't have an opportunity to check on with the solar energy. So I have 5 documents to go ahead and review and then to try to, and mostly what I just have are things regarding the economic development side, the economic development side, and then also the property value impact. And so I just want to go ahead and really absorb those. So what I want to then is absorb those so then I can put together really sort of my own executive summary of each so that people won't have to necessarily read through everything. But I have another planner. I'm supposed to speak with him next week. Is helping me find the information regarding the materials, hazardous waste potential, that type of thing. And so that's probably where a lot of the opposition and attack will come from on it. So I want to get the information in everybody's hands before that.
So, did we accept the ordinance as, when you got done with your discussion, or to go to
No,
hearing, or
I think that's,
do we need to do that tonight?
I think let's have a regular discussion, but what we can do is I think that in May, so that'll give me a chance to just have a final discussion, let me give a chance to do these other items there, and then get the various studies in everybody's hands. And then that will give me a chance to then, so if, then at the end of May, then set it up then, so I can have something set up then. If it's in a condition ready to run with, if we have, kind of like to have everybody if possible. So then set up, I'll work to set up a location and a time, then probably the second week of June. So that will give us a chance to make do the advertisement.
Okay. Well, I guess what I'm after is, I really don't want to go past June.
No,
I'd like to do it in May, but because, like Jeff and I was talking, at the rate Rush County's leasing ground
yeah,
to solar farms, it's only going to be a matter of days before they start moving to Fayette County.
yeah.
And we really need to have this in place and ready for them. And the longer we put it off, the least amount of money we're going to gain out of this. And the least amount of control as well.
But so what we'll do is okay, so I can, well, if you like, I can see about, to try to have it in, say, 2 or 3 weeks in May.
Well, that's what I think Brian and I were hoping for, was
Okay.
that we could get things ready for
Okay, so,
a May public hearing, whether it's the third week or second or third week in May.
well,
And maybe we don't, maybe we just have the hearing and we come back at our regular meeting and accept it, or
Take care of it in June, but
our regular meeting in May, we readdress it after the public hearing, if we have the public hearing.
yeah, depending on where the hearing.
Yeah.
yeah, well, I guess that would give a chance then if there are some changes that the Plan Commission wishes to make,
Yeah,
and to finalize it then for the,
the regular meeting in May, maybe, or something of that nature. I just want to get it out here in the public, as soon as we can.
Okay, what I will do then, I'll start, okay, so I'll check then about dates and times then with days of the week that are no-goes for anybody.
Tuesdays for me.
Okay. No Tuesday, okay,
Where are you at, Jeff?
I'm probably gonna struggle unless it's a Thursday or Friday evening.
okay, Thursday. Okay, we need Thursday.
I would rather stay on Thursday,
Yeah, as would I. Keeps things consistent. So,
because I don't want to lose our attorney.
oh, no, not for
Yeah.
something like this.
For something like this.
Okay, so what we'll do is
Jeff, did you see anything as far as from the legal side?
No, there's a couple of decisions we have to make at some point. There's a couple of options in there. There's some discussions. Probably the thing I like the least is on page 10 of the bond requirements. If midway through paragraph F,
yeah, the 125%.
the fund shall contain and be maintained at the amount of 125% of the cost of demolition and removal of the solar energy system up to a maximum of $250,000. I don't really like the maximum part on there. I mean, if this thing has a couple thousand acres or something, it might be substantially more than that.
Yeah. And
So I don't know
You
that
think
I would,
it should be open-ended?
yeah, but I will tell you that we're gonna get pushback on bonds. They're so expensive.
yeah, and
So it's just something to think about. But I don't know that if you want to have them bonded to be able to take these things down if need be, I don't know why you'd have a maximum amount on there, because they're not all the same size.
Yeah.
For
So-
100 acres, 250,000 maximum might be perfectly fine.
Okay.
But for 1,000 acres, $250,000 won't be.
Won't come
Okay.
close to touching.
Yeah, okay. But the,
So how do you establish the maximum?
I don't know why you'd have to have
Per-
a maximum.
yeah.
Or, I mean, per incident, I mean,
I just don't think you have a maximum.
oh, okay.
I think you just take out up to a maximum of $250,000. I think you just leave it 125% of the cost of demolition and removal of the solar energy system.
Okay, I understand.
Period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then the, okay, no.
But, and then you guys might entertain looking at the 125%. I don't know that it needs to be 125%,
Of the cost.
right, of the potential cost. But see, when you get into these, just like you did with wind, who sets what the potential cost is, right? I mean, you could probably make an argument that there is no potential cost because you could get scrap out of it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and then I think the thing related to that anyways, because up there on D, the clause D, the bonds and financial assurance shall be reevaluated every 3 years with contributions adjusting that time to cover the cost at the time of decommissioning. So,
Yeah, and a lot of them don't want to pay that. So another thing you're gonna get is, and it makes sense, they don't wanna pay that much the first, 5 years because the odds of them needing to decommission them in the first 5 years is almost non-existent.
so.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
they're really kind of throwing money away.
Yeah.
They're not gonna put them up and then not use them in 3 years later.
Yeah, so
So then
how would we then approach then the, because I know some of the discussions with the planning association listserv is that there is a lot more pushback all across the board from, well, such just as we had with Mr. Metz with the financial surety. So I guess it's
So what he's talking about is essentially what's replacing a lot of bonds is this letter of credit, where essentially their financial institution says, hey, they're good for it.
Yeah.
They have had consistently this amount in their bank account for the last 2 years, or
Yeah.
they're worth this much, or they're one of our best, you know what I mean?
for that first,
Right. But
Period.
my only concern with these are,
yeah.
man, these
If
these
they go
get,
belly up.
well, not even they go belly up. It's just that they change hands frequently.
well, that's what concerns me.
So it might be great for the first company to have a letter of credit, but they might not own it a year, and it might have 5 owners in the next 10 years.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of a concern. I'm not saying that it's something that I wouldn't entertain, but it is a
Okay.
concern.
Well, could you then, I guess then send me some language about dealing with then, not only with the 3 years, but reestablishing the financial surety at the, every time it changes hands, there needs to be a requirement for a change, for a new financial surety.
That might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, because like you said, they change hands, so,
Jeff, let me ask this question, and maybe it's so simple that I ought to know the answer, but I don't understand why it's the county's responsibility to make sure a decommission plan
Okay.
is in place on private property.
Well, this is to me a very phenomenal question. I find this fascinating. We don't typically do this, right? If somebody builds a warehouse, we don't say, well, you got to have it. I think this started with turbines. I mean, if we're all being honest, it started with the idea that what happens in 8 years if these things aren't being used and they're just sitting there and they're too expensive to get rid of and they take up so little land, it wouldn't be worth it for the owner to take it down, for the landowner to take it down. They just farm around it, right? I mean, that was the fear. I mean, if we're all being honest, that was the fear, and that's where you heard this decommissioning language. And the reason that the county gets involved in that is detrimental to people around you having, you know what I mean? That would be detrimental to the community to have them not working and looking at them and those kind of things, potentially. There's that argument. I think decommissioning these is different in a lot of ways, but that's not my job here is to tell you what you're doing is legal or not legal. I will tell you, if a guy owns 200 acres and he has these on him, and he's no longer getting paid, the company goes under, there is a lot more incentive for him at that point to get rid of them
To clean it up.
than it would be if there was just a turbine, right? Because he can farm around the turbine and it's not really impacting his farming. These, if you had 200 acres and you're sitting there not gaining money one way or the other, there's motivation to get rid of them. So I personally think that decommissioning is a little different in the solar field.
And I
'Cause I think there's-
would tend to agree with you.
There's the property owner himself or herself has significant motivation to change that.
Right.
And it might, depending on how you want to look at it, is debatable whether or not it's as impactful on its neighbors as the turbines would have been, had they not been used functional.
So, I guess I go back to my original question. Why does this board need to invoke a decommissioning?
Well, I think if, and I'm off base here, but in talking about potentially hazardous stuff, you don't want Joe Bob out there tearing these things down and not doing it properly and having waste end up in your field.
But shouldn't we be holding the property owner responsible for that? Rather than the company that leased the property? To a certain extent? I mean,
But the company should know how to dispose of it properly.
Yeah,
You know, unless, you know.
my concern is if there's any decommissioning, there's no company left.
Right.
They've went under, and there's no one out there left to do it. So, I mean,
Shouldn't that be worked out between the company and the owner?
well, that's what I'm,
That should be on theirs, you know, to decide who's in charge of getting rid of that.
I don't know from a legal standpoint how we do that. I mean,
I've raised this same issue. I mean, I think there's, but we're not going to be able to control their contract between those two parties.
and I don't think we should.
And I think the problem, I like your theory, but I think the problem is if we have them bonded, then there's a bond out there that can pay for it to be decommissioned. If we rely on the property owner, they may not have the resources to be able to do it properly. So what are they going to do? They're going to try to do it.
On a regular basis.
And that goes to his point, is that it's less likely that the property owner would have the resources to be able to, or the know-how, quite frankly.
and then then to get into the system, the stream to any recycling.
Well,
Because
Okay,
it could be
Gary,
a specialty industry to recycle.
I think we're headed this way. I'd liken it to, like, some of these houses around town who are owned by a bank in California. You know, they have no dog in the hunt as far as the house here in Connersville, Indiana.
they don't care what it looks like.
Right. So, in that regard, leaving it up to the landowner, you know, that doesn't help us out.
No.
And there's a lot of legal stuff to that we see in the houses, the steps that have to be taken and everything, and
Yeah.
it goes on for years and years and years as far as.
Well, what stops the property owner from not waiting to them to get back to them to decommission them and just start tearing them down? I mean, we've waited 2 months, I'll just start tearing them down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I will guess at some point IDEM's going to have a say in some of that.
Yeah.
We might not even be able to regulate some of that. I mean, IDEM, I hope IDEM steps in and takes care of that.
Yeah, but my personal take on it is that it's now, if it's eventually ruled that you can't do it, you can't do it. But I think that maintaining, that provision in there, the financial surety, is that there is still something that's, because we have no idea what's going to be in the contracts. It's sort of an additional, that's sort of a backup.
What's a safeguard for?
Yeah, that's a good way to safeguard. But
I guess what I'm looking at from the standpoint, if this community wants industrial solar farms, then we need to create the ordinance that makes us unique and inviting for them to come. Easier to come to Fayette County than it is to continue building up in Rush County or Franklin County or wherever, if the community wants it.
It's the, and
And I'm just looking for a niche that if companies are balking on this clause in other counties, then is that one of those clauses that we could change for less balk? I don't know, I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah, well, because right now, pretty much every place that they're being built has a financial surety requirement.
Yeah.
So I don't think that us necessarily, that being in place really isn't gonna make that much of a difference. If it's an ideal situation, they have the relative locations to, the substations to actually then get their product, what they produce into the system. Now, another way to look at it is if we find out in the meantime that this isn't gonna fly, because once it starts from the very first part, because even before anything is really done, typically, even before they come to us, is they've already made the application to get there is now room for them to get their electricity they produce into the system. And it's from the conference that Dale Munson and I went to, is that from the very start to even then finally having a product up and running, it's 3 to 5 years. So if we find out something in the meantime, something doesn't fly, just like anything else is, we can always surgically remove that particular clause if it starts to become problematic.
And I'm not saying this is a problematic, I want us to be out there, if we're inviting solar, I want us to be able to entice them to come to us instead of someplace else. I want.
Now, I understand what you're saying, Gary, but the other thing I just think, that cost, Jeff, that cost almost would be part of their business part, wouldn't it?
Sure.
So, I mean, it's not like you're asking them to do something that.
And maybe that's not the part.
Yeah.
That's not the clause.
I'm just. Like Bill's saying, I think because I agree with, you want to make it as inviting as possible.
Yes.
But at the same time, you can't, if you can.
I don't want to sell us out.
No, but you can take something out if it becomes a problem, but you can't put it back in after the fact, so, or it's gonna be harder, so.
My only concern is that, and I saw this somewhat with the wind, I saw it with other issues, over the years as commissioner, if a company come in, and they saw something that they didn't like, we just automatically made a variance. That concerns me too, that,
Right.
we sort of did it with this new development up here. Well, we're not gonna put storm sewers and curbs in because he didn't want to. And the city said, okay, and so that's the only thing that bothers me about, things are easily taken out. But if we get too much put into it, they may not even look at us.
I understand what you're saying on that, I just think it's sometimes.
It's like
It's harder to, I mean, when it's something after the fact and then you can't do anything about it, that's always the problem.
Right.
And then you're looking, well, yeah, we should have done that, Whereas I think you can test the waters the other way and see whether you're gonna get it. If they really want it, they're gonna.
Yeah.
If they're-
Well, I think some of you've heard me say in the past, as I look at things with planning with when putting an ordinance together or anything, I look at it with a kitchen sink approach. Because it's always better to start with the more, because Brian's saying is that you can always pull and remove, but it's a lot more difficult to insert something after the fact and add
Right, and I get Gary saying, all of a sudden you don't want to be taking things out just to satisfy somebody
Yeah.
as far as that.
Right.
Some of it you gotta stick to your guns on, and that's the way it is, you
Yeah.
know? So, I mean,
Yeah,
because if you do it the other way, you're just back in the same boat. So
yeah.
So anyway, 2 cents.
But I do agree, I don't think we need that, we should have that maximum in there.
Yeah.
I think we should have that open-ended, so
Yeah,
that
would there be
it covers the
some-
cost.
Either some way to put Jeff or something, to put a factor in that for whatever the amount that they're purchasing, the total package for a thing, that it's just a percentage or something, or
Yeah,
something.
I mean, one way you could do is,
So much per
tr-
acre.
yeah, I mean, try to find, that's the way I would do it,
Yeah.
is something, is so much per acre. Now, what that number is.
Yeah, I don't
per
know what
acre-
that is, but.
Right.
Yeah.
But just, even if it's something, not that you want to cover the minimal cost to do it, but just, something that's gonna take care of some of the problem if it's, or most of the problem.
I guess I can change
So-
that anyway to financial surety requirements rather
So-
than bond.
So this surety bond, will it, Jeff, okay, say the company goes under, the bond's still there, correct?
That's how that should work, yes.
And we talked about, well, we don't want just anybody tearing it down and salvaging that out. Then who takes responsibility to see that that's carried out? Once again, is the county commissioners responsible for that?
Depending on the contract, that's likely how the contract would read.
See, I just don't know that it's the taxpayers'
Yeah.
responsibility to carry something like that
Well, it
out.
won't be the taxpayers.
Well, taxpayers-
That's the idea where the
That's
surety
who's paying
comes
the
in.
commissioners.
Yeah.
That's who's paying their liability insurance.
Yeah, well, I think one aspect also is then when you're looking at the financial wherewithal to handle with the decommissioning too. It's because as the conversations bounced around is that, I mean, it could prove to be an extremely expensive prospect. And I would think that if I was the developer of a solar farm, is otherwise then you need to renegotiate then the bonding requirements, the financial surety. Let's say if you have 100 property owners, then you have to negotiate that with 100 property owners. So,
I mean, with solar, it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be different also. You're not gonna have near the property owners.
oh no, I was just using that as an example, but yeah.
But I guess what concern, I don't know. Like Jeff said, no other enterprise or no other business does a county operate this way on decommissioning or when a factory comes in, the county doesn't require these types of bonds to close it down or, and if a farming operation,
Yeah, well, it's
a specialty farm operation comes in, it's up to that private property owner to see to it that it's carried out. I don't understand these things, why government has to be part of that.
That wouldn't be in the contract between the property owner and the business on
It's-
how it's gonna be decommissioned?
It is, but potentially, but we don't have a say in that contract. We
But
won't
if it
review
was
that
in-
contract till after we probably have already made all our decisions.
But if it was in there, then we wouldn't have a say over it anyway, right?
Yeah, because the company is still contracting with us, and so the decommissioning agreement's not just this ordinance. This says there has to be a contract drafted between the commissioners and the corporation. And that's where they say. Now, most of them that have been signed throughout the state don't have the landowner on there. I find that to be very strange, but I don't know how the company and the county can contract on what's gonna happen. What if the landowner says, you're not touching my stuff, I didn't contract for you to be able to take it off? You know what I mean? So I think the landowner needs to be a party to that too, but they haven't been traditionally throughout the state.
Yeah, and the,
But what you're saying is, it's just missing the element of the county's not a part of that, and I think we need to be a part of the decommissioning agreement.
Because you had to have something there, otherwise, if it was just between the property owner and them, the guy could just say no, and you'd have this mess there. I mean, I would think if I had somebody coming in and putting this stuff on there, and all of a sudden the thing went south, I'd want those guys to have to pay for it, not a penny out of my pocket to do that, as far as.
But I mean, each piece of property, each private property parcel will come before us with a special exception to
it
do
would
it, right?
be as part of an overall special exception. So all of them would be included in the special exception, the way it was with the wind farm.
Okay. Could we not write something in the special exception requirement requiring the private property owners to have a decommissioning plan in their contracts?
Sure. But that decommissioning plan can say, we promise we'll decommission it. I mean, we're not controlling it.
But doesn't it put it in the responsibility of the private property owner?
Sure. But it gets back to-
Legally? I mean,
Sure, but it gets back to the point where if they do a poor job at this negotiation, they're sitting there with 300 acres of these on their property that are deteriorating, things growing over, they're just deteriorating for 20 or 30 years. And that is your argument, is you say that the county should not be involved in that. Everywhere else has decided the county should be involved in that because it's not good for the county to have 300 or 400 acres of these panels being just deteriorating on somebody's property. Because they didn't negotiate effectively on how to get them removed if they were to go.
And well, I think another aspect of that is.
And then that's a decision you guys could make. You could say, we don't care, that's the property owner's responsibility.
Yeah, see,
Certainly.
because you have the property owner, but the personal property, which are the solar panels, that's actually the property of the company. Exactly. So,
energy company.
yes, so it's having to put so the burden of removing, the financial burden for it, removing, really needs to be on the company. And
I think, Gary, just the simplest way to put it is, I don't think any of us would say it would be good for the community if this company in 25 years ceases to exist, to have hundreds and hundreds of acres in Fayette County that are just solar panels that are too expensive to get removed and just overgrown.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, you know what I mean?
You're
I think that's
protecting the county's property is why the county's involved and not just the individual.
I think that's the simplest way to look at it. And I agree with you on buildings, but, you know, if somebody built a building that took up 300 acres, we might want to look into what happens if the building's not built correctly or something, you know what I mean? I mean, that's the way to look at these structures. That's why it costs so much for your application fee. You're effectively building a structure on hundreds and hundreds of acres.
Okay. So then, I guess my question is, if we want to try to go in May with a public hearing, we need an official vote on something to present at the hearing, don't we?
yeah, so anything that's within this, yeah.
So how do we make these changes, some of these changes that you're talking about? Do we just, you have very good notes and we just make the motion with what we discussed tonight, the changes?
Okay, then the part where it's with the bond requirements. Okay, so change that to financial surety requirements rather than, because we have a statement about you have options with, shall establish a cash security fund, bond, irrevocable letter of credit, or other means as determined by the Fayette County Board of Commissioners. This fund is meant to secure payment for removing any abandoned solar energy system. The removal shall include the solar panels and associated equipment in the buildings that have been determined to be abandoned or found to be in non-compliance with this chapter. The fund shall contain and be maintained at 125% of the cost of demolition and removal of the solar energy system. Scratch out the part on the maximum. Okay? And based on a licensed engineer's estimate of the cost of demolition and removal. Based on a licensed engineer's estimate of the cost of demolition and removal. Okay, so I think ultimately the question is right there is the, okay, agreement on the, the engineer who's, I mean, that of course needs to be paid by the company. Okay, it's upon a licensed engineer's estimate. The established fund will be used by Fayette County to deduct fines and penalties for non-compliance with the chapter and other applicable laws. Any reduction in the security fund provided because of deductions of fines, penalties, or removal costs shall be replenished to the total required within 30 days after notice from Fayette County of the amount deducted and the deficiency created hereby. Within 3 months after the solar system is removed, any remaining funds on deposit with Fayette County pursuant to this chapter, after application and above all expenses provided herein, shall be refunded to the appropriate owner or provider who created the security fund. The requirement for security fund shall not apply to municipal corporation or school corporation. And it's just typical references as defined in these Indiana code references. So, okay. So that's with the bond. And so really I think is...
Okay, will that cover the cost of removal?
Well, it says maintained in the amount of 125% of the cost of demolition and removal. So yeah. Now, each project will have to decipher who determines that cost.
Yeah, and that's where it comes in with...
That 125%.
Yeah, and that's the licensed engineer. Okay, because I've seen some things that make reference to when you're talking about a licensed engineer. As agreed upon between the developer and the Fayette County Board of Commissioners. Okay.
Because I know, Jeff, there was statements made by several people throughout the county under the WIN agreements with the commissioners that the decommissioning agreement would break the county.
What do you mean break the county?
It wasn't, the language wasn't correct.
Okay.
And I just wanted to make sure, if we're gonna have something, then let's make sure it doesn't fall back on the county.
Well, in no way, shape, or form does this mean that the county is going to have to expend funds to remove a solar panel ever.
Right.
I mean, we're not gonna set up where we have any obligation to do it.
So entering into contracts doesn't fall back onto the county if that company defaults?
We'll review the contracts, but no, it should not say that. Absolutely not. This is not a protection, and maybe we could make that more clear, but this is not a protection for the land. The county is not providing insurance to the landowner. That's essentially what you just said. Like, hey, the company's under, it's the county's responsibility. Absolutely not.
Okay, I want to make sure that.
And I wasn't privy to those contracts. I can't imagine, I don't know.
Well, which is why...
I'm not going to allow anyone to enter into an agreement that gives the county, that won't happen.
Well, which is why one of the things that was in that was where some of the arguing came back and forth because initially the way it was written was, well, we need to know exactly what it's going to be. But then the proposal by the attorney for the Whitewater Wind, the next era, was that, well, we reassess every 5 years. So they were going to reassess every 5 years, which is actually more protective of the Fayette County taxpayers than figuring out, okay, here's a number at the front end.
Yeah.
So you need to rejigger it based on all sorts of changes in cost, which is where this has come in. But okay, here's what I added based upon a licensed engineer estimate. Okay, licensed engineer as agreed upon by developer and the county, Fayette County Board of Commissioners. I think, to estimate the cost of demolition and removal. Okay, think the only other one there seemed to be some questions about is the language on the road repairs. I didn't have anything specific, but that just didn't seem to be a lot of, road repairs. Any road damage caused by the construction of project equipment, the installation of the same or the removal of the same shall be repaired as per the road use and maintenance agreement approved by the county commissioners. The Fayette County Highway Superintendent may choose to require either remediation of road repairs upon completion of the project or is authorized to collect fees for oversized load permits. Further, a corporate surety bond in an amount to be fixed by a professional engineer may be required by the Fayette County Highway Superintendent to ensure the county that future repairs are completed to the satisfaction of the unit of local government, and the cost of bonding is to be paid by the applicant. How's that language, Jeff?
It's all right. I think the issue was that to include something that said that road use and maintenance agreement entered into and approved by the county commissioners should be contracted prior to any ILP being
Okay,
given.
okay,
That's what my notes indicated.
okay, contract
I would agree with that.
prior to issuing location permit. Okay, all right. I'll insert that in the appropriate location with
With
that.
any and all the contracts with the commissioners
All contracts should be entered into. And so-
prior to.
Right. And so, and here's how,
Permit issue.
and here's how I think that order procedure should go, is that the road use agreement should be given to the highway department for them to make their recommendation to the county commissioners, right? The drainage, any drainage agreement we go to, we should go before the, which is kind of silly, but go before the drainage board before
is
it
the
goes to the
commissioners.
commissioners.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, all those contracts should be entered into before ILP goes.
Yeah.
Because that's something, the road use agreements, and to me, very important in these, because the roads will get destroyed. They will, I mean, there'll be some heavy damage on roads.
There's
That's,
gonna be a lot of heavy equipment.
people don't think
bringing
about
in.
it, but you're a lot of equipment and a whole lot of trips, and there will be road damage for sure.
Now, I have noticed, I've went by the farm up in southern Henry County, northern Rush County, McFarland, maybe. And there really hasn't been any damage for it being springtime
Really. Good.
on the
Good.
roadways. So
I worry about that.
I didn't see anybody hauling stuff in, so I don't know how big the loads are or anything. But the equipment that they had out there, setting posts and whatnot, was not that overly large like the wind turbines would
Sure.
require. So
I myself have not been up there. That's probably a good thing for everybody on the board to do before we make that decision, is kind of drive by if there's one.
and so that kind of, because I kind of wanted to get an idea of what kind of construction equipment was up there and.
Right, I have heard that it does damage to roads, but maybe it depends on the road and maybe it depends on
Yeah.
how they're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, and also
I
when
mean, it's a lot of
when they're
semi
coming,
trips on a country road. I mean,
Right,
that's
right.
unavoidable.
and it depends upon the time of year also.
Time of the year and
Winter and spring, it
and
could
this-
end up being a lot of
they've been
damage.
up there since the spring thaws and so on and so forth, and that's usually the worst time on the country roads. And
Where's that at, Gary?
it's,
Right on the Henry County, Rush County border.
I'm
I
trying
don't
to
know
think,
which direction.
I think it's on the east, it's either east or west of Louisville
Okay.
and south of 40. Does that sound right?
Well, yeah, it's South 40, yeah.
But I can't remember.
I don't know which, if it's east or west.
I've made so many
I was
trips
thinking
the last.
I was thinking it was more west, like more towards Carthage area, but I don't want to say that. Like, is it west or east of 3? You went to it, Gary. Were you in the?
Yeah, but I've made so many trips in the last
Right.
60 days to
Right.
Indy, I forget.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll tell you what though. I'll work on getting that information.
Yeah, that'd be a good.
I'll try to do it. I like country cruises, and I'll go see if I can find it.
I don't know, I can't remember. Seems like you are right, maybe it's west of 3,
That's what I think, but I don't.
before
I
you
won't
get
say
to
it.
Knightstown.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right, it's west of 3. And you can see it from 40 if you look through the trees and whatnot, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think that, well, looking at one thing right there is one thing then with also the amount of the fees, because we're probably going to need to, as far as with the review, we're probably going to need to, enter into a contract with an engineer to do the review. Okay, okay, the part here, it must be reviewed by a technical review committee.
Where you at, buddy?
Okay, that's on page 5. Okay, is that, okay, it'll be 5D. So,
You mean that's the original plans when we reviewed?
yeah, exactly. I mean,
Before the permit is given?
exactly, yeah, for the special exception. So. Because I don't think that we are actually have anybody who we can actually place on the committee. Yeah, and it might be something whereas we might need to enter contract, say with someone like Westler or someone, to do the review, but,
Is
To
the
help
city
us
still
with it.
using Westler
yeah,
for a lot?
yep,
I
yeah,
don't know.
Them or Butler,
yeah.
maybe?
But,
I don't know if
yeah,
anybody
but,
Butler.
well, when this is,
Butler.
yeah, but someone with it.
Yeah,
And, well, for example, is, yeah, because just like for the Westler, what they do is before they'll do a project over at Connors v. Utilities, is that, well, before we sign off and approve it, you need to pay us for the engineer review. So they're paying for the engineer's review.
the applicant is.
Yeah.
And is that in there that you're responsible for that fee?
It is not.
Yeah, would be good language to have as that then. Okay.
You could just put right there, you could just put, must be reviewed by the technical review committee. Such committee will contain a licensed engineer to be chosen by the county, paid for by the applicant.
Okay, such committee will include licensed engineer, approved by county commissioners, and paid for by applicant. Okay. All right, yeah, because
So then,
those engineer reviews can be pretty steep.
yeah, once we approve this, then we'll need to put a motion in action to put someone on a retainer.
Yeah.
Or at least have discussions that they'd be available if we have one of these.
Yeah.
And so that it's already voted on, so we don't have to come to a regular meeting to hire,
Right.
get an engineer on board.
Yeah,
Sure. We could almost enter into an annual agreement with an engineering firm to have them be on hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, yeah, the city regularly uses Westler. We do of course, the county uses Butler Fairman for a lot of projects.
Road and bridge, I don't know
Yeah.
where they're at on solar.
Well, yeah, because the ones in particular, they're doing a lot of the stuff for the city. With the Westlers people, they're looking at the site development and is related, actually site development, and then how it meets the really good standards for the site development. Okay.
So was there anything else that anybody
'Cause I-
else had questions on last month?
Okay. Okay, because the big one really was the financial surety and but related to that last little bit of conversation is that wasn't here, but I think Jeff's probably aware of it, is trying to move forward. And Dale Strong has agreed that it's been 20 years, so it's time to really update the development standards. And so the one with Brad is that it's really missing a lot of things procedurally. So get things in there procedurally, how things really need to be done. Because now with working with I guess it's a good segue into the next thing, is that with the permit system. So this will be a good time with that also.
I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, but as I recall, when I was commissioner, the commissioners took the lead on creating that.
Yeah.
Hiring the
Yeah.
butler to create it, and then jointly the city and the
Yeah.
county paid for that
Yeah.
engineering.
Yeah, the
service.
city's taking the lead with this one, this
Okay.
time around.
Okay,
And, because since Brad has gotten in, there's a lot of things that he doesn't really help, with the city. There's things they really find that they want to have in it that aren't in it.
okay.
Yeah.
And then I think it went to the APC afterwards
Yeah.
to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And again,
So it's really up to them
yeah, so
to-
running with it.
to
And then,
get that route
yeah,
going.
and yeah.
Okay, with that in mind, I would entertain a motion on accepting the proposed solar ordinance as changed, revised, to go to public hearing next month.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded, that we send this ordinance as proposed and revised to public hearing in the month of May, with a date to be announced, as soon as Bill can get his calendar to work, as far as advertising and everything. Is there any other discussion or questions? All in favor? We better take a roll call vote on it. Probably.
Darren Price,
Yes.
Leo King,
Yes.
Gary Naylor,
Yes.
Brian Robb,
Yes.
Darryl Drew.
Yes.
Motion carries. Bill, through you and Brian, you can establish the date, can't you? And
Yeah, y'all have
For a
to
public
see,
hearing, yeah.
I'll have to see. what-
Count backwards with
Yeah.
your,
Exactly, so since
Advertising
we
and
pretty
everything.
much need it to be on a Thursday, so we'll take it from there.
okay. Moving on, Brian wanted us to talk about home occupation and.
Really isn't
a little
anything
bit
to add to that.
Okay. You're working on putting it in format, I think Brian said, or?
Yeah, working on the format, but that's pretty much a lot of things with working on the permit stuff's really has been consuming a lot of time
Okay,
also.
all right. So, but correct me if I'm wrong, the home occupation, the changes that are being proposed will have to go to public hearing as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll be looking at another public hearing with that as well.
We just
I-
won't make it in September.
I think,
Oh, yeah, hey, well, let's make it in September.
let's make
Let's make it September.
We'll have Jeff take notes for you. Okay. Anybody have anything to add on the home occupation subject? We'll move on to the permit software update.
Yeah, just briefly right there is of course, is that originally, but with just one person, is that typically we would have been, the goal was to implement after 2 months, but it wasn't so we're getting closer. So I'm sending the documents in, so running through some of the permit things. I've sent in the request with the WTH. What do we need to do then about getting then this information into iWork so that we can use that? So I've been starting to work with practice on the entering the data into the system. There's definitely going to be a learning curve to it, but once
sure.
it's in place, I think it'll be a great benefit to everybody. But it's so I still have some more documents to get to them. One of those is what I want the actual final appearance of the actual permit to look like. And so then it's getting it to where, because once we have that, once I get that GIS, once we can get the GIS data to them, I can then start, at least on my own, with, I can start then looking at I can start doing with the autofill that goes with it. That's the one that'll save some time, so. But yeah, it's getting closer. It's not where I was hoping to be, but it's with the construction season getting busier.
Well, I was gonna say, now you're being pulled from another direction. Any comments from the board or questions? All right. I think we'll move on to director's report.
Move to accept the director's report.
Motion made and seconded that we accept the director's report as presented. Any questions or comments?
I'm guessing these are 2022 dates. We've checked all those correct to make sure. It's 20.
Oh, yeah, 22 dates, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seeing no other comments, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, the same? Motion carries. Director's report will be accepted as presented. Any
I make
other?
a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Is there a second? There's been a motion made and seconded for adjournment. All in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same? Meeting adjourned.